Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm joined this afternoon by the Emergency Services Minister, Steph Cooke, the head of the SES, Carlene York, Jane Golding from the Bureau, and the CEOCON Assistant Commissioner, Stephen Hegarty. Currently in New South Wales, we have 63 flood warnings in place. They are generally right across the state, but particularly in those areas of Western New South Wales, the Central West, Hunter, the Hawkesbury Nepean, and the South Coast to the Illawarra. We are expecting overnight heavy rainfall on the east coast of Sydney as it moves from the west across the east, and so there is a significant risk of flash flooding right across our state. We currently have a situation where our dams are full, our rivers are full, so with heavy rain expected, we ask everybody to continue to be cautious. If those flood warnings are in place, please continue to follow instructions, be prepared and be ready if an evacuation is needed. Particularly on roads, not just in Sydney, but right across the state, please be careful. That we do expect flash flooding. There is currently flooding, particularly in areas of Western New South Wales. And also particularly now, as we're having these events occurring following previous events, that what you experienced last time may be different today, but even if there is not heavy rainfall, that does not mean that areas are not in a position where we will see heavy flooding. We really do believe that will occur, so please continue to follow instructions, be very careful on the roads. We say this every time, if it's flooded, forget it. Please do not drive through floodwaters. You're putting your life at risk, your family's life at risk, and also our emergency services personnel who put their lives on the line each day to keep us safe. So everybody across the state, please be cautious during this next period of time. We do expect heavy rainfall overnight across Sydney, across the east coast, but particularly as well as we move in to next week as well. So please be careful on the roads. I want to thank our emergency services personnel and volunteers from a number of organisations across our state who have gone through a very difficult time. I met people up in Maitland yesterday who had come down from Lismore to provide that support. The SES has been moving resources and personnel to those places that are at risk, that need support. So I want to thank them for everything that they've done over the last difficult period of time, but what they continue to do as we move through. And the best thing that we can do as a state, as a people, is to continue to follow those instructions, be careful on the roads, don't drive through floodwaters, and just be aware of the challenging circumstances that are in front of us. As I said earlier, don't let your past experience guide the present situation. We do have rivers, we do have dams that are completely at capacity, so it doesn't take heavy rainfall to necessarily create flash flooding across our state. So be cautious on the roads, be cautious right across our state as we move through this difficult time. And I just want to finish by thanking particularly our SES, but all our volunteer organisations for everything they do over what will continue to be a very difficult week for our people here in New South Wales. And lastly, again, if it's flooded, forget it. Please don't drive through floodwaters. Don't put your life at risk, your family at risk, or our great volunteers at risk as well. Now I'm going to pass to Steph Cooke. Then we'll hear from Jane from the Bureau, and then Commissioner York in relation to the SES operations.
Thank you, Premier. Well, there's a lot happening simultaneously today. There are a significant number of catchments across New South Wales with minor to moderate to major flood warnings in place. The main areas of concern for the SES include Wagga, Forbes, Warren, Gunnedah and Bathurst. At every location there is a different risk present, so we're asking communities to continue working with us through this time and to be aware of the risks that are local to your area. We're only 8 days into the storm season and unfortunately we're seeing flooding continue across New South Wales, that it continues to impact on our rural, regional and remote communities, and it is expected to do so for weeks and in fact months ahead. And the Bureau is, of course, expecting not just additional rainfall and flooding in relation to this current event, but we are expecting to see another trough move through from Wednesday, which will impact already flooded communities and flooded areas and rivers right across the west of New South Wales. I also want to thank our SES crews that are working around the clock at present. We have more than 500 personnel in the field and they are doing a magnificent job of keeping communities up to date and helping out where necessary. I've spoken to my federal counterpart overnight, and I really want to thank the federal government and the ADF for providing 4 helicopters. I can confirm that we will have 4 active from 6 p.m. tonight, 1 at Holsworthy, 1 at Williamtown and 2 at Parkes. This will supplement the 10 of our own helicopters, which we have already got pre-positioned around New South Wales. We've already got multiple incident control centres up and running across the state. We've got pre-positioned unimogs. We've doubled our call-taking capacity into the 132 500 call desk. We've got 4 cells on wheels deployed into high-risk areas of New South Wales. We've onboarded 1,300 SES volunteers since March, and we've got our new warning system in place, which I'm very pleased to report has had 60,000 views on the website over the last week or so. In Sydney, we are, as we've heard from the Premier, expecting increased rainfall overnight, and this will increase the risk of flash flooding, of landslips, of trees down. So we're really asking communities, particularly those across Sydney this evening, to please take care. If you're out and about, please be aware of the risks and enjoy your evening, but please stay safe at this time. And I'll now hand over to Jane Golding for her weather report. Thank you.
Hello everyone. So over the last week we've seen 2 low pressure troughs move through the state, and they've produced a lot of rain, in particular over inland New South Wales, so areas to the west of the Great Dividing Range, and also over the central New South Wales coast. So on average over those areas they've seen between 50 and 80 mils on average, in some locations above 100 mils. And for most of those areas, that's more than what they'd normally see in October, and some locations considerably more. Given the saturated nature of the ground at the moment and the fact that our dams are full, this is meaning that it's a lot easier for the rivers to respond, and it's a lot easier to get flash flooding at the moment, and we have seen some of those impacts. We've got several flood warnings current, some of them for major. Those major flood warnings, in particular over at the inland, are for areas that have seen prolonged flooding over recent months. So we are seeing at the moment that 3rd low pressure system move through the state, and we're starting to see the rain band associated with it really start to fill in, and we're expecting the rain rates to increase through the course of this afternoon and overnight. So in particular over the central west slopes and the northwest slopes and plains, so from Bathurst up to the Queensland border, and also along the central New South Wales coast, so between Newcastle and about Wollongong a bit further south, we should see an increase in rain overnight, through the course of this afternoon and overnight. We do have a flood watch current for how the rivers will respond to this new rain that's falling now, and there are several catchments that we do have concerns will also go into major flood levels. So that includes the Gwydir and the Namoy and the McIntyre. They're up near the Queensland border west of the Divide. The Macquarie is another one, so that's around the Bathurst area. The Lachlan is another one as well. And to the east of the Divide, the area of key concern is the Lower Hunter, so the Singleton, that's this vicinity of Singleton, the Wallumbye Brook, so the Bulga area, and also the Colo River, so that's a bit to the north of the Hawkesbury Nepean. So many other catchments across New South Wales also affected. Those ones are the ones we've got concerns about the highest impact being in the major level. Good news is this system's moving through pretty quickly, and we should have a couple of days of reprieve after it before the next system starts to encroach on the west of the state. So west of the Divide tonight, west of the Divide, the good news is by about midnight we think the rain rates will have considerably eased, and by about midday tomorrow in Sydney, the bulk of the rain will be over, and we'll just see a few showers come through. We'll also see some gusty winds, but the rain will have stopped by then. So I guess our key message is just to ask residents of New South Wales, if you're in a flood-affected area in particular, to keep an eye on the forecasts and the warnings. And that flood-affect area really covers central New South Wales coast and the bulk of the inland, unfortunately. And our forecasts and warnings, they will be updated. We've got round-the-clock coverage, and the flood forecasts in particular, we're very closely monitoring. And I'll hand over to Commissioner York now to talk about SES operations.
Thanks, Jane. Thank you. So as we've heard, significant rain has been falling, is falling, and is expected to fall over the next few days, with perhaps another front towards the middle to late next week. So it is important to remember the ground is saturated, the rivers are full, and the dams are full, and often over 100%. So it's very dangerous conditions out there, and we'd ask the public to be aware of the warnings and the information that's going out to make sure that they make safe decisions. Over the last 24 hours, the New South Wales SES has received over 330 calls for assistance, and regretfully had to perform 6 flood rescues in the last 24 hours. So it's really important that people do listen to the messages. The roads are dangerous, and it's important to remember, if there is water over the road in front of you, turn around and find another route. With the end of school holidays coming, we are expecting there will be a lot more people on the roads trying to get home before the school holidays end. And again, please be prepared. Be prepared that the trip may take longer. You might have to find an alternate route. So pack some water and extra food for you and the family in there so that you can take time and safely get to your destination. So we have many personnel out there, and we're working with not only police and all our other emergency service agencies, but as the Minister said, we also have 4 ADF helicopters there. We have our high clearance vehicles spread out across the state in those areas of high risk, so we can get in and respond to the community when needed. It's important, though, that you understand where you are, what your travel is, and what your flood risk is. So there are a number of warnings out, 63 warnings across the state, and it's important that you have, if you are in an area of risk and have been flooded before, that you have an emergency kit that's ready to go with important documents, your medication, you think about your pets, and you have a torch and a radio, battery-operated radio, just so you can make sure that you can hear all the messages and information if power is cut to your premises. So far, the community have been fantastic in coming into SES sites and council sites to get their sandbags and be prepared. We are prepared as an organisation with our partner agencies, and I call upon the community to help us in that preparation and make sure that you listen to our warnings and listen to our messages as these rains continue through. It's also important to remember that the rains will pass and the sun will come out, but the rivers may still be rising. So the water that goes in will flow down into a number of areas, and there are a number of peaks for later on Monday. So the risk doesn't go away just because the weather's fine. So I'm asking the community, please make sensible decisions. Think about where you're travelling. Think about the safety of you and your family, but also the safety of the emergency service officers who may need to come out and assist you. Thank you.
Questions?
Those 26 flood rescues, do we know what proportion of those involve people in vehicles driving through flood water?
It was 6 in 24 hours. That's all right, and 330 calls for assistance. I don't have the further detail, but there have been, not just over the last night, but over the last few days, people who have been caught in floodwaters. Obviously, sometimes people take a choice and think that their vehicle is able to get through a flooded road, and that's a very dangerous decision to make because you don't know what the state of the road or damage is underneath the water, and you don't know how deep it is. And sometimes through just the heavy rains coming in a confined area. They get caught between areas and need to be rescued. And some of our flood rescues over the last few days have been medical assistance getting ambulance officers in to help the community. So it's really important if you are cut off. We're having a number of townships that have been cut off, but also isolated farms, that you stock up with provisions whilst you can, so that you take the pressure off emergency services having to resupply, and that you're able to be safe if you're on higher ground in your premises with enough provisions as well as your medication. So really important for the community to prepare ahead.
Anything else?
Just in relation to ADF support, can someone speak to just how that request was made? Is that done differently to how it has been done in the past?
I think from previous floods we have learnt to go harder and go earlier when we're dealing with the ADF. We are in constant contact with the ADF daily, and when we have a forecast by the Bureau, we will reach out to the ADF to see what resources are available, and then as the event unfolds, we continue to talk with them about those resources. So on this occasion, it was the day before yesterday we had identified that we needed more aviation assistance, so with nighttime capacity to add on to our fleet within New South Wales. The request went in yesterday, and thankful to the Minister and the Premier, that went up very quickly and across to the Commonwealth Government, and that was approved yesterday. So those assets are now online for us to use. So we have a very good relationship with the Commonwealth. We work very closely with the ADF. They have a liaison officer here in the State Emergency Operations Centre, as well as down at my Wollongong headquarters as well. So they know what's coming. They know the risk. They're having the briefings with the Bureau as well, and it's reduces the time and the processes to make sure that we get those resources out to help the community.
I'll just add to that. I mean, one of the key learnings that come through the flood inquiry has been greater cooperation, not just around government agencies here in New South Wales, but across the country. And the improvement in relation to requests for assistance from the Commonwealth have been made. And the fact that we already have 4 helicopters on call, ready to go if required, particularly for night rescues, is incredibly pleasing. And I think that coordination is certainly substantially improved. And standing up the State Emergency Operations Centre this morning at 7 o'clock makes a real difference in ensuring that the Commonwealth continue to work very closely in partnership with the state and where the requests are required.
What's your level of concern about Bathurst? So we've got 200,000 people out there
Yep.
and potential major flooding.
Yep. Well, obviously it's a difficult time, particularly in areas like Bathurst, and we have a lot of people out there, particularly many people camping as well. But the main message I would say is please be careful on the roads. We'll have a lot of people leaving Bathurst tomorrow, many people leaving at the same time, and it's not just simply heavy rainfall, it's a concern. When you have many rivers, our dams are full, and every flood event is different. So to those people at Bathurst, to people right across the state, please be careful on our roads. Look out for each other. I think that's the great Australian way. That's what's got us through natural disasters in the past. Every event that we have is different. This one is different in circumstances where rivers are full, dams are full, the ground is wet. And ultimately that means when we do have rain, that it can create significant danger on our roads. So everyone should be cautious over this next period of time. And if we do that, we'll get through it like we've got through the last ones. Thanks very much.